Do it.
All right, guys, I got Greg Alexander, Lockup Legends and Lessons. Greg, I appreciate you. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. And I do appreciate it. I think we talked 2 weeks ago before we actually got on the air here. So I thank you for being able to work this out.
No, of course. It's been something I've been wanting to do is get on a more long form kind of a conversation. And when you reached out to me, I was like, man, that's perfect. Let's make this happen.
Good deal. Good deal. So I appreciate it. And I want to let you know that I looked at some of your stuff, but I didn't get into as much as I wanted. I got kids and I was busy and stuff. So why don't you tell everybody what you do, what you have been doing, and what your current situation is right now, and maybe even a little backstory.
Of course. Yeah. So I started the channel about on YouTube just about 2 years ago. I felt led and kind of like pushed into creating some content finally about my prison experiences that I went through. I had gotten locked up in 2003 and I was 21 years old. Subsequently was sentenced to 21 years in prison. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty poetic kind of thing right there, 21 at 21. So I was like, okay, here we go. And long story short, not going to get into that right now. Ended up doing 7.5 on it. I didn't want to talk about it for several years. This was just not something I wanted to speak about with anybody. Maybe besides joking with some friends about some stuff like that, but talking about jail, talking about prison, talking about the experiences was kind of like salt on an open wound. So it took me a very long time to get around to it. And I've wrestled with the idea for like 4 months, real hard. I was like, I am not putting my face out there for the world to know that I'm a felon and never be able to get work again. Cause I'm working blue collar for the most part, jobs that I can get. So since then, YouTube's been good to me. It's Lockup Legends and Lessons over there. And TikTok just recently started really, really opening up for me in like pretty much like the last 10 days. Some pretty extraordinary view counts just popped up out of nowhere. And I mean, I had like 200 subs on there for like a year and a half. And then within the last week, I'm at 32,000. And for me, that's just absolutely mind blowing because I didn't think anybody wanted to hear this stuff. So I definitely don't glorify prison. I don't get into it talking about how like, yeah, let's go in and do all this stuff, how to stab guards or anything stupid like that. It's more about how to stay home, because it's something that I did. I've been home 13 years, I haven't been in trouble minus a speeding ticket. So I mean, there's wisdom to be found in it, and I'm trying to pass that along to some of the younger guys now. Now that I'm feeling like I actually can do this.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. I'll be honest with you. You had to keep your nose clean just to be able to turn that into 7 years to begin with.
You ain't lying, brother. That could have run that bit up real quick, real easy. One wrong move, and when I look back on it, I was blessed because when I did get out, if I would have gotten in any trouble in prison, which I did not, I got all my kicks out in the county jail, which was about 10 months or so. Got some fights, some stupid stuff there. Learned how to fly under the radar through prison, kept my nose clean, avoided a lot of the stupidity. And if I would have made one mistake, I would have missed my grandfather's funeral. And because he died like 6 days after I came home. And this man came to see me every single month when I was all the way up in prison. He drove 4 hours each way. And so, yeah, there's something to be said for keeping your nose clean because you never know what it could take from you. And that's something that I probably would never forgive myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that would have haunted you without a doubt. Yeah, I don't believe in mistakes because there's no way you would have sit a week just enough to take a shower, get your mind right enough so you can look at people correct without anything. Whew, I couldn't imagine, man. I couldn't imagine.
It's a chalk line you got to walk, but if you do it, it can reward you, and if you don't, it can really punish you even more severe.
So, how much reading did you do while you were in there? 7 years is a long time to reflect, man.
I read a lot. I got to the point where I didn't want to read anymore for like a year. I was like, I'm good. I'll play cards. I mean, I picked stuff up, but I wasn't like as voracious with it, tearing books apart. read a lot. I like to get into the classics when I could because, a lot of the newer stuff, not knocking it. We didn't have too many Stephen King novels in there because they would always get taken from the library, or guys wouldn't come off of them if they had them in their cells. So you had to get the classics kind of because it was a matter of what was available. So I'd read some more stuff like that, old literature. Even got into Shakespeare for a while. Guys used to make fun of me when I was in the dorms. They're like, "Hey, what's up, King Lear?" I'm sitting over there reading out of my bunk. Everybody's fighting in the corner, and I'm just like, "Man, this place is stupid." But yeah, I love to read. I haven't as much since I come home, obviously, but absolutely, absolutely got into it, and yeah, I did read a bunch.
Okay. So you do get the opportunity to see family, get everything straightened out. You take some time off, you get your mind right, and now you're back doing things to help other people understand. How did that start? What was that first day like?
First day home.
No, jumping into TikTok and Instagram, trying to get this new
Um,
message out.
it was pretty much jumping into the deep end. I'm sure, as you must be aware, content creation is difficult, and especially when you're doing it by yourself, it's even harder because there's a steep learning curve. Like when I go back and look at the first couple of videos that I put out on YouTube and TikTok, oh man, I'm embarrassed because I'm like, look at the quality of these things. They're trash, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I still am learning how to do it. But it's like when you do it all alone and by yourself, you got to put that time in. So the very first day doing it, I was like, man, I've got to stretch myself or I'll never be able to do this thing. I got to step into a new territory where it's not going to happen. And the fear that, like the anxiety and the self doubt that you hear in your mind, which is like, you can't do it. It's going to suck. You're going to look stupid. You're never going to get a job. You got to just push that crap out, man, and be the master of your own self dialogue. It's just like going into the prison yard for the first time. Yeah, it's a little bit frightening, but then you look back after a little while and it's like, people, you know how to get into the weight circles, and it's different and you're used to it. And then you become not only used to it, but you become a veteran of it. So that's what I'm trying to do with this. But it's brother, it's some hard work and a lot of long hours. I mean, I just got done shooting videos maybe an hour ago, went back and just sat and relaxed, played on the phone before we linked up here tonight because I was like, man, I'm gonna be up till probably 3, 4 again this morning working. So it's it's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. But man, you got to take that first step, and if you don't do it, you'll never know. So
I agree with you on every single bullet point you just made. Because my first episode was a pilot episode, and I just told my backstory of why I wanted to do this. I listened to that like 3 times. I had to take it down. I had to take it down. I'm 60.
yeah,
This is episode 63,
nice.
and I had to make a new pilot. There was no way. It was so irrelevant to what has evolved. Because not only does the quality change, but the stuff you use changes. Your mindset changes. Your goals change. Because I personally didn't realize how this was going to navigate. I thought it was going to be me and my daughter. I thought we were going to be doing like a one-on-one talk. I didn't know I'd be talking to content creators. That wasn't the original intent. So you just don't know. But I'll be honest with you, if you're not brave enough to go for the first step, you can't even take your journey. You can't even take your journey.
Miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and I mean, you just got to keep taking them till you get good at it. And that's the only way you're going to get better is repetition, repetition. How many people have failed because they gave up right before their breakthrough? Like immediately before it, there's probably so many people that just said, man, I'm not doing this anymore. It's not paying off. I feel like it's a waste of time. And that's how I felt. And I put this video up last week about a prison stinger, how to cook water in your cell. And that thing had 1 million views in 14 hours. And I was like, yo, what happened here? Because I didn't have anything like that.
Greg,
It's
the
open doors.
stinger's what got me. That's how I started talking to you, was the stinger, man.
Right. And that's something I had actually posted a long time ago, but I posted it wrong because I had it in the wrong aspect ratio for TikTok. I didn't know any of this stuff. So I was like, all right, let me go back and do this again, repost with higher quality. And then boom, and it just shot off. And I was like, man, you just got to keep knocking on that same door sometimes and it's going to open up.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, every person I talk to has a unique story on how they go, I don't want to say rags to riches, but from two or three or five or 10,000 subs to 50, 60, 100, or start making enough money to quit their job. And
Yeah.
none of the formula is exactly the same.
No, never will be. It's
Yeah,
different for everybody. It's why everybody's got to try something different, and there might be some general guidelines, but the more you immerse yourself in your craft and what you're trying to learn and know, the better you're going to be at it, even if it takes some time.
yeah. And I'll be honest with you, you do have great content because I'm not going to lie to you, those that
Thank you.
don't go, oh yeah, you do a great job. But I'm just saying for the actual people too, is people don't realize how interesting their lives really are. The most mundane part of what you would have considered a regular day in the prison would probably blow everybody's mind and create its own 2 hour Shawshank Redemption in and of itself. And you wouldn't even know the nuance that would blow people's minds. Like the stinger. To you, the stinger was one of the lower aspects. It was like a low resolution item on
Yeah.
this. I mean, it's like making grilled cheese with an iron.
Yes.
That's
Yep. Yep.
way low on your spectrum of things that
Uh-huh.
mattered. You're thinking this is how I learned how to do a front press or like a leg press or whatever it be, and like how I perfected that position while two guys helped me. That you thought in the yard was the most important thing, or conversations you had that got you out of trouble, or that one story with your uncle. Yeah, well, that one actually that was profound. Why don't you talk about that a little bit more, man?
What about the five tips staying out of prison?
Yeah, go ahead, throw that out there again, because I think that's another one
Sure.
that's right there with the stinger, man.
I think it's great, man. And there's some things I feel like I'm like, man, this is really good. And then people, it's just like crickets. And I'm like, okay, all right, stinger time, or story time about how a guy got hit in the head with a dumbbell. And everybody's like, oh, this is great. I'm like, but there's 5 tips too. He was locked up at the same time I was. And we were in different jails throughout the state. Back then, you could write to each other. So he sent me a letter. They call him a kite in there, or, like if you're sending a note on the tier or sending a letter to another jail. A lot of times it's referred to as a kite. So he sent me one of these, and he was just like, listen, because he did time when he was younger, and he was currently in for a smaller, incarceration at this point. And he was like, listen, this is what worked for me. How to go in order? It was don't smoke, don't gamble, don't borrow, avoid the gangs at all costs, and do not make eye contact with people. And that stuck with me. And I was like, okay. So I thought about it, and I was like, the eye contact one didn't make a lot of sense until I started to see it. And I was like, oh, these guys are looking for a reason. So each one of them, like, and these are just 5 basic ones, because there's a whole handbook unwritten for the things that you need to learn. And it's going to be different from institution to institution. But those were core tenets of like what I use to guide myself through a lot of pitfalls. A lot of other people would just walk right into quickly. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking first, and I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, how will this affect me? How will it not affect me? Is this a truism or not? And then come to find out, they were accurate, and they still hold to this day.
Oh, I believe it. You hear stories all the time. I was fortunate enough not to have to do any serious time myself. I got very fortunate on that. But you hear
Good,
stories,
man. I'm
yeah,
glad.
you hear
Yeah.
stories all the time. Give up those good shoes just so you can avoid that conflict.
Yeah.
Now you were talking about the cigarettes. How about the drugs? How bad were the drugs in jail?
Depends where you were at. I ended up putting a video on YouTube. It was more of a long form because I can't do that on TikTok. So I was talking about how I worked in county jail in the kitchen, and part of the job that I had was a nighttime dishwashing job. So I go back and we get the work release trays. Now they weren't too heavy on it back then. Like I said, this was almost 20 years ago. So the guys would tape a pack of smokes up underneath of the tray, the dirty trays, and they'd be in a stack somewhere, and you'd look for them, you bring them back. So it's easy to get the stuff in. It's easy to get a hold of it. In certain institutions, it's more wide open. It's almost like open air markets. But it can be gotten. You can make hooch, you can get tobacco, you can do all that stuff if you want to. I chose not to because I was like, these are the things that put me here. Obviously after the county jail, I went through my my bumps and everything. I smoked in there and I did all that, but I quit when I went to prison. I said, I'm done. It's illegal in here. Like, it'll get me a ticket. I'm not trying to get sent back for some tobacco. I mean, it's just for what, like a quick head rush. I can just hold my breath and stick my head between my legs for a couple seconds if I want to do that and not get a ticket. So it's like, this don't even make any sense. But you can get it. It's readily available. It really comes down to just like on the streets. Choice is yours.
It always is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It is a wild conundrum. I feel like there's a fate out there that was meant for you, and then there's the fate you decide, and the two of them kind of cross at certain times in life, and it's a wild way the world works, man.
Yeah, I don't understand it. And I mean, can't change the things in the past. You just got to make the best of what you got left. And that's how I look at it. We only got so much time, man.
Yeah, and time goes by quick.
Dude, faster than I imagined. I was like, I said 21 when I got locked up. I'm gonna be 42 this year, and I'm like, dude, where did it go?
So
And they
Greg,
could have.
so Greg, on that point, man, what got you 21 years?
Yeah, of course. This was a beefier story. People ask me all the time, and I usually can't spit it in 30 seconds. So, sorry if I talk for just a moment on it.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
All right. So yeah, I was ripping and running, man. I was really, really, really abusing drugs at a young age, and I had my reasons from my past that kind of pushed me into trying to erase a lot of the hurt and the pain that you have that you may have experienced as a kid. Maybe I'm speaking to somebody out there that gets this. And so I started abusing drugs and alcohol when I was young in my teens, and it just that took that pain away. And I was like, oh man, this is great. Everybody's telling me these drugs are bad for you and all this stuff, but I've never felt better. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want this pain to be gone. So I'm going to do this. And it wasn't anything real crazy at first, experimentation until you're 15, 16, 17, and you get wheels, then you're out there because you're my age, around there at least. These kids, man, they're driving way later now, but we were 15 driving, 16 with a license, etc. And you had more opportunity. So I was out there just a lot of smoking weed, drinking when I could. I get my hands on stuff like acid, ecstasy, pills, whatever was available. And then I never did coke until I went to California. I went there when I was 19, and I just wanted to smoke weed the whole time, but they were smoking meth. And I was like, dude, that's crazy. I'd never touch that. Then after like a week watching them, I was like, yeah, let me try it. Let me try it. Because they'd smoke a little bit and they're up for a couple of days, just getting a bunch done. And it looked kind of fun for whatever reason. I was like, I'll try it out. Trying to be cool too. So I did. Next thing you know, man, I was out there for a little while. Didn't get locked up there, thank goodness. Came back to the East Coast, and there's no crystal meth, especially back then. Like, I'm
Heroin,
near Baltimore.
heroin,
Yes,
heroin, and
yes.
coke. Yeah.
Yep. I'm near Baltimore. It's 2 hours away, and that's the heroin capital of the United States. Always has been. That's why they call it Bodymore Murderland, because it's the drug trade is no joke there. A lot of those guys, they were in the prisons that I was at. So that's what I came back with, that taste for meth, you know what I mean, which was much stronger than Coke. It was way stronger, way cheaper, lasts way longer. And I was like, man, so when I started sniffing powder, it wasn't enough. So I just kept sniffing it and kept sniffing it, kept sniffing it. My nose would close up. Whatever side I was snorting on, it would just completely close up within a certain amount of time, which I learned after, several times, you know, snorting it, man. And I was like, dude, so I have to pack it in as much as I can, as quickly as I can. And that's what I'm gonna do. It's like I'd split an ounce with some buddies, they get 10, 10, and 8, and I'd have 10 grams, another have 10, another have 8. And you get like a little half gram heavy on the top. We'd split that up into 3 piles for your cigarette nummies, and you're ready to roll all night, man. My 10 grams, they were going quick. I didn't play around. So it was like, I got to get some money. Next thing you know, I'm not proud of this, but I got myself a gun. I went out and I started robbing people. And people don't believe me when I say this. That gun was never loaded because I didn't want to hurt anybody. If I could have jump scared the money into my pockets, that's what I would have done. And a buddy of mine was like, why don't you load it? I said, because I'm not getting shot or shooting anybody else. What if they pull a gun? I said, then I lay down and go to jail. Like, when that's stupid. And I was like, you want to shoot somebody and do life? Like, Maryland might execute you. I was like, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm trying to get high. So I ended up doing this for a while and I got away with it for a long time. Long story short, end up in prison, got ratted out. Guy said something because he got squeezed and told him too, if anything ever happens, just shut up. Just keep your mouth shut. It didn't play out the way I wanted it to, obviously. So I go in and the judge smashed me. They were like, they told me, my lawyer came at me and said, if you don't accept this plea deal, they're going to give you 80 years. And I said, whew, okay, what's the plea deal? And it said it's open ended, 12 to 27. I was like, so it could be almost 30. And they're like, if they even go by the guidelines. I'm like, man, this is just getting worse. So I said, all right. And I had to call my mom. I was like, this is crazy. What do I do? And we talked about it. And she's like, you got to do what's best. You got to figure it out. And this is a choice you got to make. And I said, all right, okay. So I ended up accepting the plea deal. And it was for 3 armed robberies and various handgun charges, which I was a bunch of armed robbery charges they gave me. At one point, when I counted the charges up, it was something stupid like 139 felony charges they levied against me to scare me, because after the first set of charges, they asked me to testify against someone else. And I told them, put me back on the block and don't ever come at me without a lawyer again. And they didn't like that. So next thing you know, they're throwing charges at me every week. Every week, here's a new set of charges. And I was like, man, this just keeps stacking up. It got to the point where I was looking at 840 years in prison, and it was almost 200 charges total, but it was like 139 felony charges. You're talking about armed robbery, first degree assault, second degree assault, um, uh, everything that have to do with a handgun, wear, carry, and transport, commission of a violent felony with a firearm. I mean, these are some pretty big charges, and they're scaring the crap out of me. And plus, conspiracy charges, people sleep on those, but they don't have to have much. But they can give you, I think it's up to 20 or 25 per. And I had a bunch of those going as well. So I was like, man, I'm really in a bad situation here. So I took the plea deal, and judge was like, all right, I'm gonna give you 8 years for one count, and I'm gonna give you 8 years for the other count to run consecutive. And I was like, oh man, that's 16. I hope he stops. And he was like, in 8 years run with a third count. And I was like, oh no. And he was like, to run concurrent. And I was like, okay. Thank God for that. And he was like, in 5 years for the handgun charge to run consecutive. So I did real quick math, and I'm sitting there shackled in court, circuit court building. And I was like, that's 21 years. And I'm just sitting there and I was just stunned. I mean, the courtroom was silent because nobody got smashed like that on this particular day. And he just looked at me with a scowl on his face, and he was like, you got anything to say for yourself? And I just said, thank you, Your Honor. And I went and sat down. I mean, what are you going to say? I'm not going to throw a chair at him like that Dead Presidents movie. That didn't work out for him. Even though it was funny in the movies, I'm not throwing a chair at the judge or lashing out, because it ain't going to get you nowhere but further in the hole. So I went and sat down, and the guy came up after me, had like a traffic violation. I think he got like a couple weekends in jail, and he's like, you okay with that? And he was like, yes, sir, after I saw the last guy. You know what I mean? So it's funny now in hindsight, but in the moment, I was just frozen. I was like, man, they just gave me 21 years. Yeah. So that's what I did. And a lot of people have been asking me, but this is not something I can put on TikTok. It's a short form kind of a platform there. So been trying to get it out, but thank you for asking me, man. I do like to clear that up.
Well, Greg, I appreciate your honesty, man, because it's
Of
no
course.
joke to have to plea deal out. There was a woman on here a couple months ago that had to take the plea deal too, and she didn't feel that it was warranted. All the things.
Mhm.
I'll be honest with you, we could probably talk 2 hours on just the judicial system in and of itself and how it's laid
Easily.
out. Because I don't know if the two-tier system, the rich and the poor, are really that honest anymore like it used to be. This ain't the '80s anymore. I
No, no.
I think after the drug war really kicked into overdrive, there was
Mhm.
really a huge turn of events that just changed the way they give out sentences now. I mean, obviously there was other things that are in consideration. There was a high level of hangings and capital punishment back in the day, which kind of alleviated the prison problem. And as they shrink those down,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah, I mean
rough.
the mandatory minimums in the federal prison system, that's something that's, it's concerning. You go from powder coke to crack cocaine, and I've seen guys with a thumbnail of crack get 40 years, and I'm like, that's crazy. So
Crazy.
there's definitely a huge disparity in what's going on in the justice system. And then people wonder why recidivism is the way that it is. It's like, man, the way you start a thing is not going to be different than the way you finish a thing. And then all points in between it are completely messed up, corrupt. They're just flipped upside down. It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs. And like you said, I could talk all night about that kind of thing for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah. It was. What was the craziest injustice that you heard while you were in there? Because I know you must have heard some wild ones, man.
Yeah, I did. I did. I know two particular cases. It was a national case. You may have heard of him, a guy named Kirk Bloodsworth. He was from the state of Maryland, and I think it was back in the late '80s, possibly to mid '90s. He was charged with, I believe, the rape and murder of like a 7 or 8 year old girl. And yeah, so it was really bad. He got his sentence was sent off to a very serious prison in Maryland, House of Corrections, which is no joke. That's in Jessup. It's used to be, I don't know if it still is, one of the top 5 worst prisons in the nation, and it was not too far from where I was at. So he was there. Some time later, DNA exonerated him because exactly he did 7 years, and when he came out, I mean, he was on Larry King, and I'm like, how did he get through the cut doing 7 years as that kind of a charge?
Yeah,
So
because
that's
you
a
know,
pretty
the prison. They didn't treat him that great. Those guards were a little rougher on him.
he didn't check in or anything, which checking in means going to like protective custody or the chicken farm or the chicken coop, we call it. The guys would check in over there. Some guys had to check in, like former correctional officers, former police officers, things like that. They have to. They're stuck there.
Yeah,
But other guys, like he didn't check in, and he actually somehow survived it. So I give him credit, man. I mean, that guy, he's got a unique story as well. That was probably one of the most known ones that I've heard. But there was 2 guys on my tier who ended up getting their time back. They swore they were innocent. They were convicted of a rape charge, and we were all like, "Wait, what?" And they pulled their paperwork out as you're supposed to show what's going on. And when it's shown in the paperwork how the district attorney, when the lady on the stand said, "I don't know either of these 2 guys that are over there," called a recess, took her into the back. She comes out and says otherwise. The DNA was 2 different guys as well. And this case infuriated me because they were good dudes. One of them, he just got out. I think he did 14 or 15 years. 14 or 15 years. And he was innocent the whole time. And his other buddy that was with him, same guy, and he used to say it all the time. He goes, "Man, I'm not even mad because I'm in here for something I didn't do. I'm mad because I'm in here for something that I couldn't do." He's like, this is crazy. So he did about 4 or 5 on his and got his time back. I mean, the Innocence Project got involved with these 2, and they were right across the hall from me, in one cell over on my tier. And I knew them. These were, you could tell innocence is empowering, and they might have been the Andy Dufresne of the place, the one innocent guy that I knew. So those are probably the 2 most egregious ones that I remember. One that I'd heard of, and one specifically I knew of. Yeah.
and I don't care what they give you for money or compensation. You can't get that time back. And like you said, not only is point A and point B 2 different places in a spectrum of situations, but there's all kinds of little points in between that you just can't get back. You
No,
can't get
you
back.
can't. I mean, they could have stopped. One, I got to pause sometimes. So I don't want to say their names. But yeah, these guys, you never know what it took from them. You never know, and that's the what ifs. And it's like, no matter what the compensation is, like you said, it's just not enough because you give it all back for a couple more days. Like if they lost family members, which I'm sure is a good possibility, being 14 years for the one and 5 for the other. you don't get that back. And that's time that you'll never have with your family again, especially when it's a completely blatant case of, injustice and that kind of miscarriage right there. I feel like prosecutors like that should be judged more harshly because they know the laws. And if you're polluting them for your own personal gain or to get a notch in your belt or whatever it is, I think it's despicable. They should lock them up and throw away the key. And they should have an example made out of people like that because they're always talking about making an example, but it's always the people that aren't in charge who don't know others. So that's what makes me really, really sick to my stomach because justice is lopsided. It's all about who you know.
Yeah. Well, then it's no longer justice.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know what you call it at that point, but it's not injustice. It's
Well, when you pathologize your society by justifying the means for why you do what you do, you open up a little hell for everybody. So you were saying, I don't even know if that's even considered justice, and I was trying to say something to the fact that when you pathologize a rational reason to lie, you leave a little piece of hell for everybody to experience.
yeah. I mean, there's nothing good that comes from the absence of truth. I mean, you might be making yourself feel better, but who's that helping in the long run? You're tricking other people into believing something that's not true. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's no real win-win for something like that.
Well, you're on the wrong journey too, because once you start lying, you're living a whole nother existence that has nothing to do with the journey you're supposed to be on. So I don't know, man. These prosecutors, they're literally they're escalating the negative aspect of what's happening to society and like compounding the problem.
Yes, I believe that you're 100% right, and a lot of it seems like their standpoint is almost propagandized in a way to make it a better package. It's like, and I get it, that's their job. They have to sell their side of the story to a jury or a judge, but whatever happened to just, like factual stating of the data. I mean, we see that in the media today. It's like people know they're being lied to in so many different outlets and they're rejecting it. So there's more of an awakening of consciousness now to that aspect of there's a lot of people lying and they can tell.
Yeah, and yeah, we're gonna have to. When you try to twist reality, it does have to come back straight again. It will snap back in your face. I'll be honest with you. I look at you taking your plea deal and stuff. It's kind of like you owning your scenario, and maybe that's one of the reasons why you only did a third of what your time was.
No, actually, it gets better. I was supposed to do about 14 to 17 on that, but I ended up getting back to court and I was able to get some time back. And again, this goes to not being a knucklehead when I went to prison. When I got there, I was like, man, I don't want to get out and then start to work on myself because if I do that, it'll be too late. I need to do it in here while it's hard, while it's difficult to do. So I took that upon myself and I was like, all right, I got to change. I got to quit. No more smoking, no more drinking, no more getting high. Don't get me wrong. I'm home now and I've been back for a long time. I have a drink here and there, but I don't drink like I used to for sure. I can't do it anyway. I'm too old for it. 2, 3 beers and I'm down for a couple days, man. It's
That
just
just happened to me a couple weeks ago during the Super Bowl. I
yeah,
had 3 beers and I was done, man. The next day I felt miserable. Couldn't go to the gym, nothing.
it's crazy. We're not 25, we're not even 35 anymore. So it's like, you can't shake that stuff. Yeah. So yeah. I ended up just working on me when I got there and that paid off, not only in the aspect of being able to make it to my grandfather's funeral, but also because when I went back and I was able to get time taken back by the circuit court, that is not done. It's just not done. I mean, it was unheard of. They haven't done it in the county I'm at since the 80s. So when it happened for me, I was like, whoa. I mean, I had character witnesses would come in. They're like, this kid ain't what he was. It's not, he's completely different. He's changed, and you hear that all the time, but having good character witnesses like that who know you, good people on your side, that have your back. And yeah, it was helpful. I was able to file my own paperwork, get some stuff in, and post conviction relief. I filed that when I was working up in the library slash law library. And yeah, it was a tough, scary road to do that, but it was my one shot. It was literally my only chance to get out, and it worked. And so I'm here now. They dropped my sentence down to 12 years, and I was just like, it literally turned around from 21 to 12. And I was like, this is good. So I went back to the maximum security prison I was at. They moved me out of the library because now I'm on minimum security at this point, immediately classified, put me out on the road crew. I did that for a little bit. Then they moved me back closer to home. I was at a minimum camp, which I hated. They made to pre-release and then eventually work release. And it's just like, you get it how you live. If you live right, it's not always going to benefit you, but if you do, it'll benefit yourself, and it might benefit you as well in the externals. And you got the flip stance too. There's people who just do whatever they want and they have a successful life, but how are they inside? I don't know. I
Yeah,
can't
it's
answer.
it's a long game. You have to play the long game. So when you're
Yes,
doing
sir.
the right thing and you're being honest, you're telling the truth. Um, there's perks like people being character witnesses when you need them the most that you're not going to get from those guys that are just doing whatever they want.
No, no, because
Yeah.
people can smell authenticity.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. That is. I think that's something that's so scarce nowadays that people want it so bad. They yearn for just the honest truth, man.
I agree more than you know. It's just people are craving for it, and there's not enough of it out there. So when it comes around, people cling to it, and it's just like, man, we need to get more people who are legit, authentic, true to themselves, and actually like living what they say they're living, and not putting up that facade, or that whatever it is that they're trying to put out there. It's like that hood rich stuff. Quarter tank of gas in my new E class. It's like, come on, man. It's like, do you want to pretend to be rich and be poor, or do you want to pretend to be poor and actually be rich? And I'm not speaking monetarily, but in your humility and then like your circumstances. I believe that is definitely linked together.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. And we have an opportunity to be thankful for what we have when who knows what the future holds. No one knows what tomorrow brings and how it's going to play out. And you got to take advantage of what you got. And you sound like you have a second chance, and you're taking full advantage of it, Greg. And I appreciate that. Just seeing that reality manifest in a person, man.
I'm doing my best, and every day is a struggle. We all got ups and downs, but I'm better today than I was yesterday and day before, etc. And sometimes it's two steps forward, one step back, but sometimes you got a good week where it's five steps forward, and it's like, all right, okay. And then you got to cling to it and remember what got you there, and not just float on that feeling of like, oh, I just keep doing. Got to keep grounded and keep focused. And like you said, man, being thankful is so important because you never know. I mean, I've been eating ramen noodles for years, and now I'm making pasta at the house and doing my own thing, and I prefer that.
Oh yeah, much rather steak than a grilled cheese sandwich. That's for sure.
Yeah, buddy.
So, what's another cool trick you learned in prison, man? What are some of the things that people would not be inclined to know?
Well, I like to shoot dice before I went away. I used to shoot CeeLo with some friends, and we played $1 a roll. And so when I got there, there's no dice. I ended up, I was everything that I talk about, I had to learn from someone else. It's not like I just went in and learned these things or just came up with them. You get around the older guys or the people with experience, and they'll usually hip you to something different. So I was like, man, I'm trying to get a set of dice. And they're like, man, they ain't got no dice in here. You know that. Like, even if you had a board game, they take the dice out because they knew what it was. And so, how would I do it? And so, we got to make it out of soap. And I was like, okay. So, just carve the soap up. And they're like, nah, nah, nah. And then you want to wrap toilet paper around it and use sugar water to solidify it so it gets rock solid. So then you can roll those things off the wall or whatever and keep playing. So, I ended up doing 120 days on lockup in the county jail for second fight, and made some dice in there. And I just shot dice by myself to keep busy. I did 750 push-ups every other day and would just do that and just roll dice and try to read books and try
How
to
many
not go.
how many push-ups? Say that again.
Every other day I was doing 750 when I was in on the hammer, but yeah,
Is that a normal prison amount? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never done 700 in a day in my life.
I didn't before that, but I mean it got to be more later on. I was doing 100 in a set. I would do 300 push-ups before I go out to big yard, and we do like 26 sets of bench that day, like chest. So you really had to get it in, man, and we did. So you got to put that work in, and I'm not as nearly as jacked up as I was back then, but I'm about 15 pounds lighter than my heaviest in there, but I'm healthy. You know what I mean? I got that lean muscle. So yeah, that's 750. Knew a guy who would do 1,000 every day, but he was a lot shorter too. So he had them short arms and a big fat triceps on him. And I'm a lean guy, so it was 750 was a stretch for me.
Man, shit, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, you got a lot of time to kill. You got a lot of time to kill. So reading books,
Yeah, man.
do a couple hundred push-ups, read a couple more books.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yep,
I'm
got to
trying.
find ways to keep yourself busy.
Yeah, man. And at what point did that get redundant and you're like, shit, I've got to find a way to change that up?
Um, you have to embrace routine once you get to prison because it's like everything's regimented, and if you can't live by like a schedule and a routine, you're going to have a hard time because the thought in your mind of what you want versus the hard cold reality of what it is, so you kind of have to get in the program. And it's not easy, but I would make myself do things that I didn't want to do. It's um, doing hard things. Making myself do the push-ups, making myself do the free squats, making myself read more, just things like that. Making myself floss with a piece of sheet string. You know what I mean? Because there's not good dental in there. You can't get floss because people choke each other to death with it. So it's like, all right, let me just do the things I don't want to, so that I can do the things I want to later.
Yeah, that's the real deal.
It's not
I,
easy.
well, I think the more cushy our lives are, the more we have to push ourselves in that exact same mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got a pretty easy job. I got a pretty easy life, relatively speaking.
Good.
Moved away from my family, and man, I didn't realize what I had when I had it,
Mm-hmm.
and then other circumstances changed. You realize that you have to put yourself outside of that comfort zone when you do have the freedom to be so comfortable. It's not easy. It's not easy to make your own routine. So to hear you in that situation, I'm like, wow, that you could be in a prison of your own mind sometimes.
Exactly, and that was talked about a lot in there. There's books about it in the prison of the mind, and it's true. It's true, and yeah, it's you gotta shift your mindset if you want to see your circumstances change, and that's what I did. A lot of times, guys thought I was crazy because I'd have a smile on my face because I was like, man, I just learned something new today, or I just learned this cool thing, and I was aware of everything around me, but I also didn't feed into it all. I wasn't like a part of a lot of the stuff that a lot of other guys were chasing, and that's what I think gave me a lot of peace in there that they didn't have.
Yeah, because you're literally if you're still chasing the nonsense,
Mm.
you're gonna hit the ground running when you get out.
Yeah, you're gonna find whatever you chase.
Yeah, we're aiming machines. We're designed to aim. It's actually kind of funny how we do that. And you know something new that I learned that I didn't know existed. It took 44 years to figure this out. We don't pick our passions. Our passions pick us.
Yes,
Is
you're
that
so
the
right.
is that the wildest thing you ever heard? I mean, that's someone else's observation, but man, once I heard that, I was like, wow, that changed so many things after so many journeys. I'm like, I never realized that. Yeah, it's a flipped way of looking at the exact same thing, and it changes the way you see certain stuff, man.
100%, man. It's so true, and if you haven't felt it, you probably haven't discovered it yet. So it's something, if people are seeking that, then they should probably just keep turning over stones and seeing what there is.
Can you imagine the Greeks probably found that out thousands of years ago, wrote it down, and no one read it.
Yeah, or it got burned up in the Alexandrian library or
Yeah,
something. I mean,
yeah.
it's just
Because
like,
those guys had time to think. They
yeah,
basically were sitting in a small city where they had the time to do what you were doing in that prison,
yeah,
reading and exercising and really meditating on things. Because I find now that I've actually taken the time to pay attention a little bit. I was struggling with something with the editing here and doing what I'm doing, and I was like, okay, I have to build this set behind me to do what. I was like, I don't need to spend all this money on this bracket and all these things. So I'm sitting there at Home Depot, got my hand up on this bar that's got all the 2x4s up, and I'm like, okay, $150 for this and a bunch of brackets. And I'm like, damn it, I don't have the money for this. I really don't. And it's not even going to be convenient. This is going to be so inconvenient. So I sat and I just went silent. I said, I'm going to just go silent for a couple minutes and just think. Ripped the desk out of the wall from the one I built, moved it 90 degrees and put the wall that I have behind me, solved two of my problems in one, didn't cost me a penny, and it just took 5 minutes of quiet. Five
that's
minutes of
it.
quiet. It took me years to realize I needed to just be quiet once in a while. I'd constantly have music going, or I would talk too much, and all of a sudden, you just go quiet for a minute and really just slow down.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, the Buddhists really mastered it in so many ways. I mean, they truly did. They would sit down and they would, and those guys are calm, and you could tell they got that, inner whatever about them. But you're right, man. It's you got to slow down because I'm like you. I'm a doer. I want to do things. Like when I first started shooting my videos, they were in my office where I just try to do my work from home on a computer before I start doing this. And then now I've since retrofitted my living room because I was like, all right, let me pull this table off the wall and put some stuff up over here, move some things around because the light's better, the sound is better in here. I don't think my wife likes it all the time. And I'm like, listen, don't move the table. This is what I'm doing out here. And she's like, okay, all right, whatever. I'm not going to touch it. And I'm like, okay, thank you, thank you.
It's a fun adventure because you don't know what's going to happen next. As you're inventing it and creating it and coming up with it, something goes a whole nother way or epically fails or no one pays attention, but that's absolutely irrelevant to the adventure.
No, you ain't lying, man. It's probably my 10th iteration of moving things around and way I'm shooting things. And it's like, I think I found it now. And I'm sure the 10th one from now, and I'm on iteration 20 of however this turns out to be, I'll be like, yeah, I think I'm there now. And it'll always change. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You don't
And
want to get stagnant.
yeah, and then 20, iteration 20 plus iteration 2 with a twist, all of a sudden is the magic moment.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yeah. If
just
you were
don't
able to
know.
see what it looks like, it looks crazy. I got my computer up on a box. I got this other stuff having a microphone all in my face right here. I'm trying to keep the cat quiet over that way. It's just like it looks nuts in here, but it works, and you got to do what when you're chasing your passion, like you say, it makes sense, man. It really does.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I was lazy and bored for so long, and just going through the motions. You got kids, you got a wife, you're expected to do certain things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Once you take that responsibility, it's your duty to fulfill that responsibility. But don't want to die on the inside, man.
No, a lot of men seem to have that problem too. It's weird. They die on the inside because they quit chasing things that make them happy. Because they prioritize the needs over of their family, which is not bad, over the needs of themselves as well. But when you pouring from an empty cup, there's only so much you can give. So it's good to find that balance, man. It's all balance. So it's like, got to take care of your family, but you also got to take care of yourself. And if that means telling your kids, hey, y'all need to leave me alone for a little while, or hey, I need to go do this by myself for a couple of hours, and we'll get together soon, so be it. But yeah, it's just striking that balance is difficult to find, and most people just don't want to do it.
Well, not only that, but I think we could do 3 times as much as we think we can. Maybe even
Yes.
10. Maybe even 10 times. Another thing I learned was I don't touch my phone until I do a certain amount of things in the morning. Like I
I
got
love
this,
that.
yeah, I got this stupid little routine where I make my bed, I do this. A lot of prison stuff actually. Ironically, a lot of dumb things: brush your teeth, make your bed, all
Yeah,
these dumb little things you got to do because you know you got to go to breakfast in the morning, right?
yeah, buddy.
So I got all these dumb little routines I got to do, and then I reward myself with the phone. But here's the deal: when you have five dumb things to do that you don't want to do, you
Mhm.
become hyper efficient at doing them.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, the things that I would let linger until noon, I can do in 20 minutes instead of 40 minutes.
Yeah,
So
no, there's a difference between being busy and being productive.
yeah.
And once you figure that out, it sounds like you've got it figured out right now. That's
Oh yeah,
awesome.
well they're all in their infancy stages. These things haven't existed for 5 years yet. Another thing I'm doing that really makes a big difference for me too is once I figure out how to edit something, I
Mhm.
find out how to do it as fast as humanly possible so I can pump out that video that day. I just moved my desk. I just bought a new computer. I just bought new software. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm like 4 episodes behind. I've been doing 3 or 4 episodes a week and
Mhm.
publishing them that day or the next day for like a month or two now. So I am so inner frustrated with the fact that I'm behind like 4 episodes. Blowing my mind. This
Yeah.
girl, this OnlyFans girl, she's like, I'm ready to publish stuff. I'm ready to push this episode. I'm like, I haven't published it yet. I still haven't done the multicam because I learned how to take this video and zoom into you and zoom into me and make 3 videos out of it like I got 3 cameras. But I've been struggling to make it work properly. I just got it 20 minutes before I talked to you. Just got it.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. People have no idea. They're like, "Well, you're just shooting videos." It's like, dude, you don't even know, man. It's so much. And like you said, like that one hiccup or the new software or getting used to a new computer, it makes a world of difference. You got to put hours into it. But I mean, it's worth it when it pays off. And then your skill base is so much wider too that you feel like you're more accomplished and you've actually done something as compared to the guy who it's like, well, I can shoot videos. There's talkers out there. Oh, I could do that, or I could do this. It's like, okay, show me, and they can't do it. So they're not putting the work in, man. And that's you put the work in like you're doing, and it's just going to keep paying off. I scrolled through your podcast when you first reached out. I checked you out on Spotify. I was like, cool, I added you on there, subbed on YouTube. And I'm not on iHeart or anything like that, but I assume you're on there as well.
Yeah.
So I went back and I was looking through and I was like, oh yeah, he's been doing this for however long here, and it's like his stuff is getting better each time too. I'm like, I get that, and I was like, I felt like a
There's a
like a
camaraderie
point
because
counterpoint
every
with that.
time you
Yeah,
say something, I'm like, wow, man, this guy,
yeah,
yeah,
we're on that same path, man, and it's just totally different roads, but on that same path, if that makes sense,
yeah, I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah.
Greg, this is awesome, man. So, so what's one of your big projects you're doing right now?
Oh man, I just started writing Substacks about 2 weeks ago because I was like, it's taking me a long time to talk about this. Maybe I should start writing about it as well. And I feel like I've had a decent gift for writing, and then I put some things out there, and people are really receptive to it. And it's not like I'm getting paid or anything on there right now. I'm just trying to do it to get it out. Everything's free for a long time because I want people to see the content. And after I wrote just a couple articles, I was like, I should write a book. So I've been doing that here since I just literally started this Thursday afternoon. I was out on my back porch. We finally got some sun up here in Maryland. I sat outside. I was getting, Uncle Fester looking rough. So I went out and I took the shirt off, got a little sun on my face, and I wrote an outline for the book right there. And I got the whole thing. And I was just like, this is what I needed. I needed this outline. So I started writing it. First night I did like 2,200 words, and I'm trying to do like a 30,000 word book. Nothing too crazy, nothing too long. Like if you're familiar with like James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, it's only like 7,500 words or something. And I wanted to be something similar to that, but that's my project right now. I'm writing a book called Wisdom Behind the Walls: Surviving Prison, Thriving in Life. And I'd always kind of wanted to do it, but now that I've got the outline, it's starting to happen. And I'm just squeezing it out of my brain and just sitting down when I don't think I have anything to write. I just start, and then things come, and then it's good. So I feel like I'm on the right path because it just keeps happening. Like I keep getting these downloads for it that I didn't have before. And it's exciting. So that's my big project right now. But content creation is number one. Besides, the book is right there, close to number two, and that ties in with the Substacks as well, just the writing. But content creation, because like I said, TikTok really popped off, and I'm like, well, I got to feed it because that's what's hungry right now. So I'm watering that side of the grass, and yeah, I'll try to shoot a couple videos a day if I can. Try to edit them. Sometimes they're trash, and I got to throw them out and just go back and redo it. So all these people make it look like it's simple and easy. It's not. But yeah. So that's number one is writing. Excuse me. Number one is content creation, then writing right now, and I hope to have the book out. See about self-publishing it, so I can keep all the money. Within the next 2 months, I'd like to do that. I think I can get it done.
That's awesome. You end up getting that book and you self-publish, I'll have you back on. And we'll make sure we push it
Sure.
for you as much as we can, man.
Absolutely, man. I'd love to.
All right, good deal.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how long you been married?
3 years. 3 years. Yeah. I waited for a while when I came home because I wasn't ready for any of that yet, and I still was working on me. So yeah, we actually met at a job we worked at together, and never thought anything would happen. And then I had broken up with my girlfriend. She broke up with her boyfriend around the same time. I was like, always liked her. We got along, and I was like, hey, want to go get a drink? She was like, yeah. And then next thing you know, there we were. And it
Nice.
didn't take too long after that. I think we were engaged just a year later, and we were married 6 months after that. And
Wow.
I told her, I was like, when we get engaged, I was like, I've never been married, and I'm not trying to do this twice. So when we get engaged, I was like, it's going to happen quick. And then poof, it did. 6 months later, we were married, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's pretty cool, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. All right. So what do you see in the future, man? Besides the book and TikTok, what else? What else passions are you finding out there that are calling you?
One of the big ones that I've had, and this was something that it's been put on the shelf for a long time too, is the topic of recidivism and its reduction, because it's important. We've got too many people locked up, too many people staying locked up. Stop. Cat screeching at me. Yeah, too many people. It's like over 2 million people or something stupid like that in the United States. And that's not okay. We lead the world in that. And it's not like, well, I guess people should just do better. Well, okay. Well, when they get to prison, what are we doing to keep them out? So when I came home, I talked about this extensively. I was put on a form of probation and parole when they let me out. It was called the VPI, the Violence Preventative or Prevention Initiative. And it's a serious like level of ultra parole. So it was for the first 6 months, I had to I had to go in twice a week to the parole office, give them urine once a week, two phone calls, also within the 5 days, and they would come to my job site once a week. So I had like five contacts plus a urinalysis weekly for 6 months. And when I got off of it, they were like, "Yeah, we're putting you on BPI too." And I was like, "Cool, what's that?" And it was just a little bit less. So it wasn't as bad. And then it kind of like weaned down afterwards. I did like 3 years on parole. And it was to the point where I didn't have to come in for like every 6 months near the end, which was all right. And I actually paid my parole fees. They're like, nobody pays these off. I was like, I don't want to see you again. I was like, just take the money. And they're like, okay, you're signed off. And I was like, I want a printout right now that I'm done. And they're like, okay. So I got the paperwork. And it was shortly after that, the head of parole and probation in my county called my cell phone, and I'm quaking in my boots. I'm like, what did I do? I was like, am I in trouble? Did something happen? Did I get a false positive on a urine? Am I going back? And I was like, hey, and he was like, hey, it's such and such, and I was like, yeah, I know who you are. What's going on? He's like, I got a favor for you, or I want to ask you a favor, and I was like, okay. I was like, what is he going to ask me? So he goes, we're having a DPSCS meeting. It's Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. And you're the only person in the state of Maryland who's successfully graduated VPI without incident. And I was like, really? And he was like, what have you done? I was like, well, I went to school full time when I came. I got a Pell Grant because just got let loose. So they pay for my school. And I utilized it. I went back and got some college, and then once they cut the Pell Grant off, I couldn't go. I was working full time and I was in school full load, and I was doing this VPI mess. So they're like, we want you to come and speak about it. And I said, okay. And he goes, but do me a favor. When you get there, don't tell anybody who you are. I was like, all right, why is that? And he goes, because it's a room full of suits and they're all, like prison officials, etc. They're not going to be receptive until they hear you start speaking. And I said, okay, you got it. So I went back and I wrote something out. And this was it was about 10 years ago. And I went in and sat through the meeting. And they're talking about all their stuff, their prison issues and the things that are going on, the minutes of the day and this meeting. And they were like, we got a special guest here at the end. And so I got my shirt and tie on. I look just like one of them. I'm not in there wearing some baggy pants or anything stupid. And I'm looking presentable. I go in, I'm clean cut, fresh shaven. I go up and I start speaking. And as soon as they realized I was an inmate, everyone in the room was like, you could feel like the air went out of the room. They were like, this guy has been in here listening to us the whole time talk about inmates the way that we are and how stupid they are and all this stuff. And I was like, man, this is great. So I had it flipped on him. I was trying not to, smile or laugh or anything inside. So I went through and I said my thing. And at the end, it was quiet for a second and they got up and gave me a standing ovation. And I was just like, oh, cool. I was like, I'm not used to this from y'all. So got a bunch of offers to go speak about recidivism, et cetera. But they really didn't follow through with it, but they all came around and were like, this is good. This is what we need. We need more of this. And I'm like, I'd be glad to help. Let me know. So I've offered my services before in this and people usually don't take them. And I'm like, I don't know if you don't want the problem to be fixed or if you just don't think it's going to be fixed by me. And I'm not by any means the guy, but I am one guy who has an example of what I've done, not just do as I say, not do as I do. It's like, listen, I actually forged this path. It was like a pathfinder in a way for a lot of people in this situation who don't go out and pioneer something new and different. There's a fear of success that a lot of felons and convicts have. And once you get over that, when you show somebody else, it's almost like climbing Everest when they're going up and the Sherpas go up and then they put up a next rope. You don't know where the thing is through the fog, etc. All you know is there's one ley line up there and you got to get to it. And then once you get to it, then there's another one, but you got to get to each one to see the next. And I think that's so important that people have the desire to not want to go back, but not only have the desire to not want to go back, they have to take the uncomfortable steps that make them the person they may not want to be so that they don't go back. You can't just get to be who you are and also get the results of success. Like you can't just eat donuts all day and not work out and get a six pack. You got to get that sweat equity into it. So I'm very passionate about this, and that may be a book for another time, but right now I'm working on this other one. So we'll see what happens with it. But I've been open to speaking to people about it before, and I've had the opportunity a couple of times, but it's never really materialized like I wanted to. I'm like, man, this is something I believe could help people, but you can't force help on others if they don't want it, and if they don't come ask for it, there's only so much knocking I can do before I just sit back and wait. So we'll see, man. But that is something I definitely care about, because it's important. We've got a fractured society of broken men who come out and they bring the problems that they had going in, plus everything they learned in those gladiator camps. They bring them out with them. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, why is the family unit destroyed? Oh, why is everything bad going on with this guy? He had time. Don't they take care of this stuff in there? No, for one, they don't really do much for you. You got to kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps in a way. But it's a very nuanced, multifaceted topic that I would love to speak more to people who actually care to hear about it, because we've got problems. We've got serious problems in the prison system, but they can be fixed. It's not that hard. It's just the want to do it and to get a couple of people, key people, like figures of influence, authority, that they can swing some of these things. I know there's senators out there that want this. I know there's congressmen who want this on the state level, the federal level. They're around, but I don't think that they have anybody to follow to do these things. There's money for days. All these programs, everybody's like, oh, we need more money for them. No, you don't. You've got limitless bankrolls for all these failed agencies throughout the United States. You're not lacking money, you're lacking leadership. You've got people in charge who have no business being in charge, and they're running it like a business model. So there's a human aspect and a human factor that they don't possess and they never will. So it's almost time to take the trash out with a lot of these organizations, restructure from the ground up, and they need a solid vision to do it.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. Um, I don't know if there's going to be enough people with the stomach to do it.
You don't need a lot. You just need a couple of the right ones. I mean,
I
there's like
agree.
what?
I agree.
There's only 200 people in Hollywood who control all the finances for it. So it's like it goes to a very small group of people. And when you think about it that way, it's like, if you get the ear or the attention or the influence of one person who has that ability to swing something, you can make a change. And it's not doesn't mean it's going to be a blanket nationwide kind of a immediate effect. But if you do something in one place that works, they're going to want to see it done in another place. And then that can spread like wildfire. And a lot of it starts with the community. And there's not a lot of community involvement. People are like, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. We need to get this, what do you call them, committee together. It's like, no, you don't. You need to reach out to your faith leaders in the community. You need to reach out to the people who run the homeless shelters. You need to reach out to the people who are business owners who have a receptivity for this kind of a change because it can happen. And then we got a lot of problems in the society. I mean, we're really going down the tubes quick in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm scared for our future in a lot of ways. But this is something that I know. And other people need to step up into their sphere of what they know and start talking about these things, because then and only then can you actually affect true change.
Yeah. And someone else said one time, if everybody tried to do a little bit better to make things a little bit better, how much better would the world be if everybody just tried to? And then the flip side is, what if we just tried not to make it worse?
Yeah, even if we just stood still
Can
instead
you
of
imagine if 7 billion people just tried not to fuck everything up?
I
Just try.
would
We don't.
love
We
to
don't
see
know. We
that.
don't know what the potential is, because how many people are self-defeating, or how many people are just haters, or how many people are just looking for an excuse to burn something down.
No, I mean,
I
love.
would, yeah, I would say a combination of that and change is painful. The old man has to die for the new man to be born. There's an element of that reality in every change. And when you throw money at it, you basically are saying, I don't want the old man to die. I think money's going to fix it for me. And just throw money at it. And I don't know if some of those leaders are ready to actually do the hard work, the little way. It's a very small thing, but the hard work to let that old man die a little bit. Because like you said, restructuring any part of any bureaucracy, no matter how small of a change, you know how much fight there would be from all the middle management. Do you know how much fight there would be from the people that are picking like little maggots, picking little pieces of, but you're right. All it takes is one man. All it takes is one man with one passion who's telling the truth and living his journey the way he's supposed to, that could change everything.
Absolutely. I mean, love him or hate him. Look at Elon Musk. This is one man. He started small. I think he coded a video game, and he got 500
It
bucks.
sold it. Yeah. The company sold the
Yeah,
company. Yeah, it escalated so fast. And I
everything. So
think
he built on.
that's a very important aspect. I think you're on the correct journey. You're doing the right thing. You're doing what you're supposed to do. When things escalate in a way you don't see it happening, and you start going on these tangents and writing books or setting up your living room a certain way or moving a table 90 degrees, things that you wouldn't have saw even happening. I didn't realize I'd be, well, that's a whole nother thing. I don't even want to get into that because I could go down a whole rabbit hole there. But
Nah, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I can't. I got to go get my daughter from work.
All right. I'm good. Good.
But
Good. Of
Greg, I appreciate you, man. I wish I had another hour.
course. Of course.
Yeah, it was a good talk, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. If you want to get into this stuff deeper anytime, you let me know, man, because I could talk 2, 3 hours about prison, recidivism easily. It just flows. I mean, because it's in there, so it's not hard to come out. I don't have a lot of dead air when I talk. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, you got great speed too. It's not you don't talk too fast either, so it's perfect.
Hey, reading a lot in prison that helps.
Just making it a little bit better. Just making it a little bit better.
That's it, man. That's it. That's it.
All right, Greg, go ahead and plug your stuff. Let everybody know where they can find you and what you're doing, all your projects.
The last line of thought, no problem. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me. First of all, I really do appreciate it. This is my first podcast, so I just want to say thanks, man. I enjoyed it, and I've been wanting to get out and talk to somebody. So I love your format. Just keep doing what you're doing. So you can find me if you want to on YouTube, Lockup Legends and Lessons. TikTok, it's at Lockup Legends or shorter videos. Substack, Superfelon, substack.superfelon.com. And same thing on Twitter, which I'm really not on there too much, is just at Superfelon. But just keep an eye out for that. And I'll be putting a book out soon, Wisdom Behind the Walls, Surviving Prison, Thriving in Life.
Awesome. All right, Greg. Thank you again. You have a great evening, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this.